Today is October 4th, 2025. So if you watch my video 195, I uploaded to YouTube at the last day of September, and you may capture about $40 of increase of Tesla stock price at the next day or the opening of the next up to the next 2 days. So in at the last day of September, that's this daily chart. That's this bar chart. When it opened here and dropped down to this price, $433. So that one on daily chart is opened on this green trend line, dropped down to this blue trend line. So it's a good support. And on weekly chart, Tesla on weekly chart, $433 is exactly around this green support trend line, $431. So at that price, I already knew it good support, and then it will start to increase the stock price, have an uptrend on the next day. So on the next day, first day of October, that's this price. And actually, after it dropped down to this price, it already have a price reversal and started to increase at the same day and closed around $444 at the last day of September. And on the first day of October, and this is the Wednesday and the Thursday, and that's a Friday of October. And when it opened here on the first day of October, opened around a little bit above this green support trend line. So I already knew it's a good support for that day. So and then it just started to have an uptrend and increased all the way up to this resistance dot around $459. And the next day it opened high and opened exactly around this $470. So $470 is exactly at the top yellow resistance trend line on the daily chart. So when it increased or have a price around this top resistance trend line, it will start to have a price reversal and started to drop down to the bottom support trend line for that day. That happened exactly and almost dropped by about $30 from the $470 to all the way down to the around $435. So almost like dropped by $35 on Thursday. And then the next day, next Friday, and it opened a little bit high because the previous day it already dropped down to this relatively low price and $436 on daily chart. So it increased a little bit, opened high up to this purple trend line. So typically if it has a downward trend, and then the purple trend line is typically the high resistance for that day. So it increased, have a fake breakout and started to decrease and always decreased again down to $416. So it's dropped to almost like by another $30. So when it dropped down to this $416 or $17, it started to have a price reversal, increase a little bit to $429. So when it dropped down to this $416, it's very close to this blue support trend line in the weekly chart. So if you change it to monthly chart, it's exactly dropped down to this green support trend line in the monthly chart. So it and started to have a temporary rebound and closed around $429. So next week, this is a daily chart. So the tips of these trend lines are the predicted high and low for the early next week or the early next day. If this is the daily chart, that's for the early next week. And if this is the weekly chart, then that will be the predicted high and low for the next week. So early next week, it may have a tendency to at least to increase it to this $433 or may have a tendency to increase it to this $446, but this one could be the daily high at least a daily high, either this one or this one, and but it still have a tendency to drop it down to this $415, or it may open low and then increase from a lower price, from a lower support line. So basically, the fluctuation range of early next week, at least to cover this $433 and the $415, and then depends on if it has a high increasing trend or decreasing trend, and it may this bottom support line or this blue or this yellow trend line is kind of additional potential low or potential high. Depends on if it has a very strong uptrend or downtrend momentum. And so Tesla weekly chart next week, the weekly high is likely to be this $434, and it may have a tendency to drop it down to this $405. So this monthly chart, and when the temporary decrease to this green support trend line, so it may have a temporary rebound, but this trend line may not be hold for the whole month. So for this month, it may have a tendency to drop it down to this 338 $388 for this blue support trend line. So when it decreases to this support trend line, definitely it will also be a good support and will have a temporary or at least have a good rebound. So